So hello and welcome. Today we'll be offering a short guided meditation and then some thoughts on cultivating a path and how daily meditation practice can be supportive in So hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be offering some thoughts on cultivating a path in life so that this meditation practice becomes something more than just what's done in a seated position, but how that can carry into our wider life. And we'll start with about a 15-minute guided meditation, and then I'll share some thoughts after that. So wherever you're sitting right now, to begin, just finding a comfortable posture, something that's upright if that's possible for you, or just any way that you can feel rooted, grounded, stable for the next 15 minutes or so. Closing your eyes if that feels comfortable, or you can just rest your gaze kind of on the ground in front of you. Begin by taking a few longer, slower, deeper breaths, just to kind of stretch out the lungs. Release what's not needed in this moment. And as you feel ready, just allowing this breath to return to its natural rhythm. Allowing this body to be breathed. And setting the intention that while we're here for this next 15 minutes, to set down having to be anyone, having to become anything. Attuning the mind to this heart, to this body as it is right now. And we'll be using the breath as the through line of experience. So allowing the mind to settle on this natural rhythm of the breath, wherever you notice that. For some people that's at the nose, the nostrils. For some people, even the throat. And for many people that's in the torso, so in the chest or in the belly. It can be something very grounding to kind of come into this body through the rhythm of the breath. Relaxing the muscles of the face, softening the thinking mind, allowing the eyes to relax, and the shoulders to fall back naturally. And just softening into the chest and the belly. Sometimes there can be unnoticed constriction or tension in this area of the body. Almost a guardedness, protection, which is understandable. But in meditation and mindfulness practice, the invitation is to soften, to release those protective muscles of the abdomen, and the chest, to allow this breath to move more freely through the body. noticing as we open this breath more fully, is it possible to breathe into the lower half of the body as well? Feeling into the sit bones, the connection with the floor, the chair. Feeling into the legs. Can each inhalation be received by this lower half of the body? So often can go unnoticed or unaware. We can live from the neck up or the waist up. So just spending a moment to breathe into and from this lower half of the body. Grounding and rooting the mind in the depth of the nervous system. And tuning into a whole body awareness, if that feels supportive for you. So seeing if it's possible to just have a nice broad or wide awareness of the body, along with the attention on the breath. So we continue to use this breath as an anchor, as an object, while also having this broad or wide awareness of the body, which can help further stabilize the mind. So we're not trying to stop thinking altogether. We're not trying to push away thoughts. We're just trying to encourage this present moment awareness, rooted in the body. We can just allow thoughts to kind of glance off the mind when we notice them. This is the foundation of mindfulness practice. Mindfulness immersed in the body and simply aware as thoughts arise and pass. Seeing if it's possible for these next few minutes to fully stay with the inhalations and the exhalations. So it doesn't mean there needs to be no thinking. We can stay with the breath even as thoughts arise and pass. Noticing also that there's space in this mind, there's an openness in this awareness. Noticing the gaps between the thoughts. Noticing this open, receptive quality of awareness which is ever present, reliable. This can feel like home. Resting in this mindfulness, which is always accessible. For this last minute or two here, sensing into the heart or the center of the chest, and breathing through with a sense of appreciation. Very simple, doesn't have to be grandiose, just simple appreciation for having taken the time to offer yourself some stillness and some presence of mind. Every time we practice mindfulness meditation, it's like another drop filling up a bucket. And over time, it's possible to discover how this bucket can fill and deeply transform our lives. And as you feel ready, just opening your eyes if your eyes have been closed. Sensing into your surroundings. Thank you so much for your practice. So I'd like to share some thoughts now on cultivating a path, a wider path, and how meditation can become transformative in a way beyond just the 15 minutes or so, or however long we might sit in meditation. But how can that really begin to impact and become a part of our larger life? I'm going to talk a little bit about the more traditional Buddhist path and how that was a big part of the Buddhist teachings. And then also just straight from the heart share some of my own experiences and how cultivating a meditation practice led to a larger path in my own life. And then I want to share some reflections on perhaps how to consider how meditation can influence your own path and your own life. One of the things that I think is beautiful about a path is that it's a clearing. It's defined, I guess, not by what's there, but what's not there. There's an open space that it opens up, whether it's through the woods or through a tall grass. It opens up room, and there's also this onward leading nature of it. So I think there's something very inviting about that metaphor. And the idea of a path was very central to the Buddhist teaching. There's a sutta called the Nagara Sutta where the Buddha recollects kind of the process that he went through prior to his awakening. I've always really appreciated this, so I'd like to share it. He says, "It is just as if a person traveling alone along a wilderness track were to see an ancient path, an ancient road, traveled by people of former times. They would follow it. Following it, they would see an ancient city, an ancient capital inhabited by people of former times, complete with parks, groves, and ponds, walled and delightful. In the same way, I saw an ancient path, an ancient road, traveled by the rightly self-awakened ones of former times. And what is that ancient path, that ancient road, traveled by the rightly self-awakened ones of former times? Just this noble eightfold path, having wise view, aspiration, having wise speech, action, and livelihood, having wise effort, mindfulness, and concentration." So I love this metaphor, particularly this uncovering of an ancient path. It's almost like wandering through the woods and coming across something. Oh, there's something here. And the Buddha's recollection of kind of uncovering something that was already there. I think there's something beautiful about walking and discovering a path which other people have discovered in this life. And also this idea that, that many people before have traveled it, yet it still requires this uncovering, and that it leads to this great opening, the space where there's this ancient city, as he describes it, which from how I've understood this from teachers is said to be freedom or realization or nirvana. So there's a lot of metaphors that the Buddha uses to describe kind of an opening or open space to represent freedom. But I love he brings it back to, instead of just describing how great and beautiful freedom is, it always comes back to the path. How do we get there? This was something that was very central to the Buddhist teachings. He wasn't very into metaphysical descriptions of the nature of the universe, but was focused on how do we come to the end of suffering. And so he mentions this eightfold path, which I'll just briefly talk about, is kind of divided roughly into three sections, which is virtue, cultivating meditation, mindfulness and concentration, and cultivating wisdom and freedom. And so the virtue aspect of this, in simplest terms, is living a life of non-harm and cultivating that's what's good and beautiful. The idea being that if harm's being caused, whether to ourselves or to others, that it's very difficult to sit down and meditate. The mind can be very restless. And also it's for the welfare and to promote the safety of those around us as well. And so the second part of this is the meditation, which what we were just doing. So cultivating mindfulness, cultivating, meditative concentration, and cultivating a balanced effort. This is the middle path, another path that the Buddha mentioned. Always between extremes, finding this balanced approach where not pushing too hard, and at the same time not just letting the practice get too relaxed. And so when meditation is cultivated over time, it can start to develop an innate wisdom of the mind, a deep clarity. Sometimes I know for myself, I can be so lost in a problem or a situation, fixated on trying to figure it out conceptually. And then what often happens is during meditation or, taking some time away from it, without thinking about it, suddenly the mind comes to a different clarity, a different understanding of what's happening. And I really believe that comes from something deeper than the conceptual mind. Not saying we don't need to think about things, that's also important. But wisdom from the Buddha's view was seeing into how craving and attachment and clinging leads to suffering, and how release leads to freedom. And something key to this whole path is having aspiration, having an idea, an intention of where we're going. And I think this is really important, because without an aspiration, it's hard to embark on any kind of a path. So the seeds for my own spiritual path were planted at a fairly young age. I was 18, and my brother invited me to join him to travel to Nepal to practice at a Tibetan monastery there. And so this was my first exposure to Buddhist meditation, and it was deeply impactful. Learned to meditate every day. But I have a very distinct, clear memory on that trip of, learning the fundamentals of Buddhist philosophy, psychology, and being shared with about the Four Noble Truths for the first time. The first of which being that there's suffering in this life. Being a young person at the time, I challenged that, and I remember saying well, is there really that much suffering? I don't think I had experienced enough somehow, despite many difficulties I had been through. I wasn't really ready to recognize the full scope of what suffering can be in life at that time. And so, I think a big part of me at a young age just wanted to have fun. I wanted to play in a rock band. I wanted to travel. And so when it was the 4 months were up, my brother invited for me to stay, and I wasn't ready. I don't think I had suffered enough to really come to my own meditation path at that time. So I came home and, lived a life of rock and roll and partying quite a bit for many years. And fast forward to the age of 32, and I'm coming out of a hospital, just detoxing from pretty serious alcohol and opiate addiction. And I'm on a walker because I've been in a hospital bed for a month. And I remember having this moment of okay, there is suffering. I can recognize it now. It just took me a minute to get there. And so that was a really transformative time in my life, and I had to take a new direction. And I remember thinking at that time, dropping any lofty aspirations and just thinking I just want to be a good person, I had fallen into a life because of the addiction I lived of stealing and lying and doing so many things that caused a lot of shame and harm to those around me. And so in that moment, I had this shift where it was I don't need to, I don't need a court, I don't need to be well known, I don't need any of the things I thought I needed. I'm just going to try to focus on being a good person for now, trying to be a safe person. And that was a huge shift in my own personal path. And obviously refraining from the drugs and the alcohol I was using at that time was extremely important, and it still is for me at this day. And I also discovered meditation at that time, and learned right away how powerful it was to just be able to sit still, to find a little bit of space and some of the painful emotions, and also to learn to sit through them. In early recovery, for a lot of people, it's really important to find distractions to not fall back into addictive patterns. And I did find that helpful, things like going to the gym, just staying busy. But what I thought was so transformative about meditation is that it taught me to sit through the actual cravings, to get to know what was happening in my mind, and to see when the craving would be so strong, I could go home, sit down on the cushion, breathe, and that eventually it would pass. And for me to be able to see that, I was able to see through what had been driving and fueling that addiction for so long. And I think, while this is maybe, unique to a story of recovery and addiction, I think there can be, for everyone, some form of a doorway into meditation that can be powerful like that. What is it in your own life that sitting down in meditation and sitting through and being with maybe for the first time, becoming familiar with, can be a gateway? And so meditation became another aspiration in my path. Okay, this is something I want to try to do every day. This is another aspect of cultivating a path, is consistency, showing up day after day for it, or whatever routine works for you. Just some form of continuity. For meditation to really have an impact, it's not a short fix, it's a long-term practice. And then finally, I had surrounded myself with a lot of people at that time who were wise, who were kind. I was going to a meditation center many days a week where there was recovery groups, general meditation groups, and one thing I noticed about a lot of the folks in leadership positions there is that they were really dedicated to lives of service, whether in their professional lives or just dedicating their time to showing up there, volunteering their time to help, to support others. And I saw that, and I started showing up myself in the same way. Just simple ways, not trying to take on too much, but helping clean. I was just always there. So they kind of took me in too and started, help me find a position and roles there where I could be of support. And that was really meaningful to me at that time, to kind of shifting a focus on my life from what can I get out of life to what can I actually offer? How can I be of support to others? And that has taken many roles in my life over the years, from mentoring people in recovery to leading meditation groups, and to a life as a career as a therapist, which I've now taken on. Sure, many of you are familiar with Rainn Wilson, was an actor from The Office, and I heard him share a story recently. He has a podcast, and he was talking about traveling to India to meet with many Tibetan monks and teachers, and having a conversation with one of the monks, and saying, if you were, say you're on top of the mountain, I'm the one climbing up the side of this mountain, asking, what is the meaning of life? What would you say? Well, I don't remember his exact words. He said something along the lines of, the meaning of life is service to others. And that when you are in service to others, it can dissolve your own inadequacies, anxieties, and depression, and that it also makes the world a better place. And I find that, very beautiful, and maybe not the answer I think I would have expected. That one of the most important things we can do in this life is to find ways to serve others. And I think also cultivating a personal meditation practice can be a part of that, because we can learn to fill our own cup so that we can be more present for those around us. So finally, I wanted to share some encouragements and considerations for cultivating your own path. One of the things I always start with newer clients I'm working with as a therapist is to find out what your values, trying to find out what people's values and what's really important. Where do they find beauty in life? I think so often people can come into therapy wanting to focus on what the problems are, which is understandable. But in order for me to fully get to know someone, I also always want to know, where are you finding joy? Where are you finding beauty? What is deeply important to you? Because if we can know that together, we can. It's easier to have a direction of where this is going. I can have an idea of where you want to go. So just considering for yourself, what are some of your own personal values? Whether that's spirituality or wellness or creativity, taking care of yourself, whatever that might be, figuring that out, and then finding how to allocate time on a daily basis in alignment with those values. Because what I find so often for myself is I can say, for me, my spiritual path is my most important thing. But then when I look at my schedule, it's filling up a very small amount of that time. So how do I expand that? That's a big practice for me, is always coming back. How do I carve out more time for that? So what is it for you that you might want to carve out more time for? I always like to try to ask myself, am I walking the path I want to be walking? And a big part of that is coming back to intention, values. The Buddha said that the mind is the forerunner of all things. So what we're cultivating in our mind on a daily basis, this will define where our path goes. And also recognizing that to not let the mind get caught up in there's somewhere else to be and I need to get there, because that can also take us away from the present. So that's just that's a last encouragement, is to find that balance from, okay, here's my values, here's the direction I want to go, but also at the same time, to walk this path, I have to be here every day. I can't just fast forward to the end of it, right? It's a gradual process. So I wanted to end with another story from the suttas. This is the Rohitassa Sutta. And there's a seeker who's coming to the Buddha saying that he's tried to reach the end of the world in a past life, the end of the cosmos. This is kind of a metaphor for trying to find freedom, trying to find liberation. And he says to the Buddha, once I was a seer named Rohitassa, a student of Boja, a powerful skywalker. My speed was as fast as that of a strong archer, well-trained, a practiced hand, a practiced sharpshooter, shooting a light arrow across the shadow of a palm tree. My stride stretched as far as the east sea is from the west. To me, endowed with such speed, such a stride, there came the desire. I will go traveling to the end of the cosmos. I, with a 100-year life, a 100-year span, spent 100 years traveling. But without reaching the end of the cosmos, I died along the way. And the Buddha says, I tell you, friend, that it is not possible by traveling to know or see or reach a far end of the cosmos where one does not take birth, age, die, pass away, or reappear. But at the same time, I tell you that there is no making an end of suffering and stress without reaching the end of the cosmos. Yet it is just within this fathom-long body, with its perception and intellect, that I declare that there is the cosmos, the origination of the cosmos, the cessation of the cosmos, and the path of practice leading to the cessation of the cosmos. So I just love this response. Someone who's been trying to travel to the end of the world, trying to find the end of the universe somehow, an end to this whole massive suffering. And the Buddha's saying it's not through walking or trying to run or get anywhere, but it's really right here within this own body and heart that we find freedom and liberation. So just a reminder that we can walk a path that can also be a deep path of transformation within. So I offer this for your reflections. Thank you as always for tuning in. And if you found this supportive, of course, just encourage you to leave a comment, let me know what's on your mind, or, subscribe to the channel and to keep coming back. Thank you so much, and be well.